Hello, hello, hello. Let me. Are these D&D characters? No. I just draw fantasy characters in my free time. But I think it'd be fun to play. It's kind of like the most exciting part about D&D is just like making the characters as opposed to like actually playing. Although playing is fun, but I just end up having like so many more characters at that point. It's just like I just have OCs as I've always had. We're back to square one, you know. Cool, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 16 months. Thank you. So yeah. I feel like at any point if I ever make like fantasy characters, it'll just be like I'm just making OCs at this point, which is what I've always done. So at what point is it just like, hey, maybe I just like making characters? But I will say D&D is fun. I do enjoy it, and I'm very excited to play tomorrow. I'm gonna continue our campaign tomorrow, so I'm excited. But yeah, I'm gonna draw for a bit, and then we'll see if anyone comes along. But yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. I'm in 2 more campaigns that are started by some other people, and I really like the characters that I've made thus far for those things. So I'm very excited. Oh wait, hold on. Let me quickly make sure that my last saved file thing does not show NDA stuff. So hold on. Let me make sure that that's not the case. Give me a second. So I don't think it does. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yep. It's fine. We're fine. We're good. What race and class? So I have one that is a human. I can actually show you. I did a painting for her. So I have a human paladin who's actually not for D&D. It's for Dungeon World. One of my coworkers who prefers Dungeon World over D&D is starting a new campaign, or rather, we're adopting an old campaign that he had, and we are starting with like totally new characters, so slightly different rules, but I got to make a human paladin, and I'm very excited to play her. So this is a painting I did for her for fun. She's a greatsword dual wielding paladin. And her name is Titania. He let me kind of like fabricate her whole kind of like religious thing, because like there's not really any defined deities in Dungeon World, so he was just like, here's your deity, do whatever you want with her or him or whatnot. So I made myself a little paladin. I say little, but she's actually like 6'8" or something. But yeah, so he was like, hey, you wanna, well, no, I said, can I dual wield? And he's like, sure, because it doesn't matter, like, Dungeon World is a little bit more simplified in some ways. So he's like, your attack stuff does not change. It's just the, you know, your aesthetics. You can do whatever you want with them. So I made this character, which is very much, I feel like, kind of like Elden Ring-esque in like that kind of like dark vibe to it, just because so many of my friends have been playing Elden Ring. So then I started like thinking in that headspace. So she's a little darker than I normally go, but I'm very excited to play her. And the other one I haven't designed my character for yet. It's a kind of like sea-based piratey campaign. So I'm gonna design like a new character for that. But I have decided that it is going to be a gunslinger cleric, which I had to negotiate with my DM about, because I was like, what if, you know, someone could just like shoot magic bullets into you and that's a form of healing. And took some liberties with that, but they seem to be tentatively okay with the idea, so I'm gonna try and figure out how I'm gonna make a gunslinger cleric work, because I really want to play a gunslinger. And I also want to try playing a cleric, because I think that could be fun. A forged cleric specifically. But yeah, so I have a couple of campaigns happening, and we're gonna see how that goes. But yeah. Let's see who's coming. Hi Artsy. Hey No Variables. Hey Rainy. Hey Neil. But yeah, so that is some stuff that's been going on, and I'm excited. I mean, people, as soon as someone just asks me like, hey, you want to make a character, like, absolutely, that's all I care about. Just let me make a character. I don't care about the other stuff. Nice, well, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay here. Me do some stuff, so before I forget, me do that. What's the link? Keep forgetting. Twitch. And I'm gonna put a sticker somewhere, because I really like these stickers. Hey Marlo, how are you? How's been everybody's week? How was, anyone do anything fun? had a game night with friends. Cool. What did you guys play? Very tired and sore. Oh yeah, your job's a lot more labor focused now, isn't it? Like, now a lot of it is moving stuff around. Okay. I think we're good on everything. Played Mortal Kombat 11, Mario Kart, and Super Smash Brothers. That's neat. I am terrible at those party fighting games, but they're always very fun, regardless. I've only worked one day on set this week, the 19th to 22. Well, 19th to 22nd will be on this constantly. That does seem pretty daunting. I don't know. I feel like I can never have the stamina to work on like production sets. But hopefully it'll be a rewarding experience, maybe? Yeah, Hermit, I totally get you on the work thing. Like, at a certain point, once you start, like, working, kind of either full-time or something to that effect, like, your week does not change very much. People are like, you know, like, oh, how was your week? It's like, the same as always. Like, I went to work, I did work, and then I went home, or I was at home because I work remotely, and it's like, yep, that's how every week is for the rest of my life. This song is very strange. I'm deigned to skip. I accidentally took a 5-hour nap, so now I can watch the stream of those two in here. Yeah, I feel that. Sometimes, like, a devil nap in the random, like, middle of the day, it's just like, alright, well, guess my sleep schedule is now flipped for the foreseeable future. So, I feel ya, and I'm very sorry. Just wanted to update and say I got into a uni course for concept art for games and film. Thank you for having me. That's so awesome! Congratulations! I am so happy for you. You don't have to thank me because you obviously did it all on your own, you know, like strength and determination. So I'd say, like, be proud of yourself 100%. That is really, really cool. And I'm really proud of you for pushing through, and I hope that you enjoy your classes. You know, I feel like when you get into stuff like concept art, like, they really try to find ways to make it more stratified and unified, and like they try to really boil it down so that it's easy to teach, or it's more concrete and concise to teach, but it's really fun. And like, you know, you're gonna get into school and it's probably gonna feel super restrictive, but Promise you, there's so many flavors out there when it comes to like ways that you can do this job, and it's a really fun place to be. So don't let school, convince you otherwise. I don't know exactly how your classes are going to be structured, but I hope, you'll get, all of like, you'll get what you want out of it, and so much more. Because personally, I think concept is a really fun job to have, a really fun skill set to have. One that is ever constantly expanding and demanding new things from you. So I'm very excited for you. Congratulations. I'm still learning digital illustration too. Nice. Yeah, I'd say any of these things can always, like, any of those, I guess, different majors, all of those skill sets kind of like mesh together. So digital illustration is a great place to learn like what is an essential part of most jobs, most art careers, I feel like, which is some degree of illustration know-how and understanding of those topics. And it's extremely versatile to use basically everywhere. So knowing illustration is extremely useful. I don't know how my classes will be either, but the only thing I know is that we'll do 3D stuff. 3D stuff is great. I'd say that, a lot of people don't really appreciate being able to learn 3D as much as they should, especially for 2D concept people. Being able to learn how to utilize 3D opens up a whole new world for what you can accomplish, right? Because some concept artists use 3D quite heavily in their stuff. Some people use it as a guide, and some people don't use it at all. But beyond like the technical aspect of like you could use 3D to accomplish your concepts, it also makes you such a better concept artist because you will work with 3D artists at some point in your life depending on the project that you are on. Obviously, you can always be just working on 2D stuff, but very rarely, I think, is that like the entirety of someone's career. You'll most likely at some point be working with 3D, and knowing how it's made, how it's done, the process for it will make you such a more useful asset and such a more useful concept artist and a helpful concept artist to other people on your team. So if you do get to take any 3D classes, I'd say like pay attention, have fun in them. It's genuinely really fun actually to do 3D, even if you know in your heart of hearts like, yeah, I'm gonna be a 2D artist for sure. I think it's really good to have those skills, and it's just nice because like once you actually get out there and you start working, knowing any kind of 3D is incredibly helpful. Not only does it help you communicate with people better, you won't take things for granted in the way that being a 2D artist allows you to. You'll be a much better communicator, much better team member, and a much better just like artist of the pipeline. And plus it's just fun. Like if you get really good at it, like, and you do it in your free time, the world is your oyster. It is really, really fun. Thank you. Is it Kale Ray? Or Kale-Ray? Or Kale-Ray? Do I pronounce the E? Is it all one word? I feel like every time I pronounce your name, I say it differently. Kale-Ray? Kale? Kali? What are some of my hobbies? And I will hydrate. I like... oh gosh. I like reading. Reading's fun. I haven't done it very often recently, but I am trying to actively read more. I enjoy reading. Singing is a hobby of mine, although I kind of just do it when I'm working. But I do enjoy it a lot. I'm actively attempting to learn a stringed instrument. Sort of actively. Lately I haven't because I've been busy, but I've been trying to learn my ukulele. Whoa! I dropped my pen. I've been trying to learn the ukulele. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but it is fun to have an instrument to pick up because it's cool. But, what else? What else? I like things that I don't do very often, but I would like to do more. Writing. There was a period of my life where I wrote a ton of short stories, for fun, or like wrote up documents for world building and all that kind of stuff. And I dabbled for a very short amount of time in like drafting my own, like half fan fiction, but mostly just like allegories for my own characters, that I never published or did anything with. But writing was something I was really interested in for a while. But that kind of never blossomed into anything, so it just never became a hobby, but I would like to get back into it. I don't know if listening to music counts as a hobby. I really like music. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's just like not enough stuff that I do regularly enough for me to be like, does that count as a hobby? But yeah. In my day-to-day, not a ton of that kind of stuff gets done. I generally just draw for fun and then for work. I didn't know what to do with myself before your class because I love to do fan arts and draw characters, but I've actually seen the beauty of concept art, how complex it is, so definitely a huge thank you. I am so very happy to hear that my class could help you. And I wish you all the best of luck moving forward because, you know, it's kind of a scrappy thing. You have to play it by ear, your career, but it is really fun and rewarding, at least for me. What am I reading? So I am trying to read like a mixture of nonfiction and fiction. So I kind of want to read some of the original books that some of the Ghibli movies are based off of. So like actually reading Howl's Moving Castle, and all that kind of stuff. I've recently been reading Minor Feelings, which is a pretty intense book if you are Asian American. Or an Asian immigrant, or the child of an immigrant family. But that's been kind of what I've been chipping away at for the last bit. But yeah, I read a lot of fiction, and I'm trying to read more nonfiction. And there are a couple books that I've been meaning to pick up that I haven't, so I would like to catch up on some of the series that I read back in high school that I just never finished. But those are the two that I am currently reading, like Howl's Moving Castle. Oh, I also picked up the first Earthsea book and Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea series because I really want to finish that, reread it. But yeah. I saw your post on your Instagram of a girl on top of a robot head. I really like the paint. What pencil did you use? Oh, that was probably my Scavengers piece, right? Do I have a version of that on this computer? I don't have that Scavengers piece. Let me look it up. Let me look up that piece, which I think I put on ArtStation as well. I did. So let's see. It kind of just looks like it might have been, let me see. Could it have been this one? It might have been this one? I'm not sure. Let me see. It's got a little bit of spacing. It's got a little bit of shape dynamics. Can you guys see this? Yes, you can. Okay. Got a little bit of shape dynamics. It's got a little bit of texture, which makes me kind of feel like I didn't use this one because it doesn't look like it had any texture in that one. It might have just been a normal hard opacity brush. But I'm inclined to believe that I probably didn't use that because I don't enjoy using just normal hard opacity brushes. So it's got a little bit of a texture, and it's got some transfer on it, or no, yeah, it's flow. It's got a little bit of a flow jitter on it. So that might have been the one I was using, but it's been so long I don't really remember specifically which one I used. Just drawing for fun, I guess. But we will get to doing commission stuff soon. Be Elden Ring, nice. I've been eyeing your work for a while and I wanted to say how beautiful your draftsmanship is. Thank you. I've always loved looking at your concept art on your website since it's always so inspiring. I was wondering what your first job you ever worked was, the first job you ever worked, and how was your experience with it? So there are like two ways to answer this question. It could either be like the first commission I ever did, the first freelance I ever did / contract, or the first job I ever had, which is like a full-time employment thing. First commission was back in like 2012, 2011. So that was like way long ago. I don't remember it being that crazy. But it was also like the only commission I got for like years. So I remember very fondly the person who commissioned me for the first time. First freelance, that I don't remember necessarily. It was probably for an indie game at some point. Like I did a lot of visual novels when I was younger. And those, a lot of them didn't end up coming out. More recently, I've been doing visual novel design work for Great Gretzky Studios, which has been really lovely. They've been really nice to me. And their projects have done surprisingly, like, really exponentially well. Like, their first one came out and it was really solid, and then their next one, I feel like is getting so much attention, so it's really nice to see them, like, really flourishing. But I've been doing visual novel stuff for a while. Probably that was my first foray into freelancing. Again, it's like a lot of them didn't come out when I started them ages ago, so I feel like my experiences with them were okay. Granted, it was a little sketch because I was definitely like a preteen to really young teenager working with adult men on a lot of these visual novel games, which ended up being adult visual novels. A whole thing about early internet stuff, but they were all relatively nice to me, except for like one experience. And first job I ever worked at was recently. Like, I got my first in-house full-time position at a third-party studio. It was good. It was great. I mean, other than some of the other instances, or some of the unfortunate, like, happenstances that went on there, the people I met there were really great. I really loved my team. I really loved, like, the people I met there, all of whom, for the most part, I feel extremely fortunate to now be able to consider, like, colleagues or peers of mine, even friends, potentially. But the projects there weren't nearly as interesting to me, and ultimately I left after a certain point. But it wasn't, like, it was not, like, a terrible experience in terms of, like, actually working there. It was just unfortunate that I didn't necessarily feel particularly, like, creatively fulfilled working in those spaces, but that's not necessarily an uncommon thing. Quite often, once you realize that, like, working in the industry still means it's a job, so you're still working for someone else, still working on their ideas, like, that's kind of the bread and butter of a lot of those things. But I feel like I've been very fortunate in general that all of my jobs have been pretty filled with decent people, very respectful people, and that my work in general was also relatively well respected as well. And welcome to the stream. Yapiko, thank you for the raid. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Hey Vince, we got raided, which is very nice. Thank you so much. I hope your stream went well, and I hope you had a good time. Yeah, I definitely need to practice, like, putting props and stuff, and, like, doing more storytelling in general in my sketches. I feel like I don't do that enough. Yeah, sorry about that. When I answer questions, I don't scroll the chat any further because I need to make sure that I answered all of it. So apologies, I caught it after all of that stuff. Yeah. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Been lurking around because I have 2 essays. I wish you the best of luck, Louis. I hope you can get them done. I know you can get them done. Godspeed. I just got into this Pro. I was wondering if you ended up getting a smooth texture sheet or if you just vibe with how quickly the nibs wore out. I kind of vibed with how quickly the nibs wore out. I did decrease the amount of I guess, soften the tip pressure for the tablet so I wouldn't have to press as hard, and I did find that my nibs ended up lasting a lot longer. But it's just an unfortunate design. Like, it's like, I guess, a form of planned obsolescence, because you just wear out those nibs so fast, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to buy more. They're like $80. So Wacom is a total ass for doing that to people. But I have discovered that the less hard your pressure is when you're pressing it down, generally allows me to keep the same nib on for a while. And that's been my experience for the past couple of years. So I'd say give that a shot. Oh, the alerts still haven't transferred. Right, I keep forgetting to do that. It's because we moved from whatever the other one was, Streamlabs, to Stream Elements, that I haven't set up the audio thing, unfortunately. Give me a reminder to do that after the stream today. Because I will forget once more again. Yeah, I mean, it's good that the nibs are soft enough to not scratch the screen sometimes. I've had instances where it'll just like catch on like an edge and it will scratch my screen, which happened a lot. Or, well, not screen, the surface, because I used to just have it in Toast Pro. Which does happen sometimes, which sucks. But yeah, they're generally softer so that you don't have to worry about screen damage oftentimes, which just means that Wacom can charge you $80 to replace your nibs, or $70 or something. I don't know. I don't know if they've gotten cheaper. Probably not. Just gone on Twitch and so excited to watch your stream. I've only used Psychologies. Well, welcome to the stream. I'm so glad you can make it. It's always very nice to hear when people say that they're able to make the stream. I'm very, very happy to have you here. Is it a bad time to ask you a question related on tips to draw dogs? I don't know if I could help you, if I'm being honest, because I am terrible at anything to do with animals. I will start on the commissions now. I've not yet seen Turning Red, but I will. I promise, I will. I'm gonna watch it. I mean, you know, okay. So there's like this kind of unfortunate thing where it's like a lot of these Asian American movies or stuff about like Asian American experiences coming out recently. It's like, I'm so excited to watch a movie about Asians doing Asian things on screen, right? And that's not necessarily a diss. It's just like, this is how low the bar is. I'm going to be excited to see a movie about my, like, half my life experience on screen, and that is, like, enough. You know, I have to settle for that. But I am still excited to watch it because I think it's really cute. I'm always excited to see, like, the new kind of like experiment on a technical scale for animation. I think it's always very fun. So I look forward to seeing that, I guess. But just haven't had the time. We'll probably watch it sometime this weekend, I imagine. Okay, so let's get started. And I am going to do the first one, which is the other half. How many hours do I draw a day? Depends. I also draw for work. So I guess it depends on if you count that. Okay, so I don't. Oh, he's got multiple outfits. Okay. Do you ever have a difficult time searching or trying to find a pose that you feel matches a mental image you have? Yeah, I generally find it difficult to find references for poses. I think that's kind of always been my experience. But I think that's kind of why I was drawn to starting, like, learning how to craft poses in my head by myself. I think I've always been privy to that just because I liked that sort of inventive aspect to it. So I always wanted to invent my own poses versus like going out and finding a reference for a pose, just because it always felt like so much more hassle to me, and I'm an extremely one-track minded person. If I cannot like sit down and do the thing, I'm probably never gonna do the thing. And if I have to sit down and do research for stuff before I can draw the thing, which drawing is the most enjoyable aspect of the process for me, I'm probably not gonna even get to it. So my solution to that has been brute force and like do the research, but only if I really have to, which is not a great way to learn the technical stuff, but I'm an impatient person, and it just ended up kind of almost being a barrier to enjoying what I was doing. So I really wanted to learn the skill of like inventing my own poses myself. Sorry, I got a text from family, so this takes this takes priority for a second. Okay, sorry. How how do you, oh, and I didn't see the follow-up question. How do you remember did that? I guess that was my answer, but that's kind of like the weird answer. It's like, this is what I did. I'd say if you can load up on like researching and studying a bunch of different poses before you need to use them, that's kind of my recommendation, because as soon as you build this sort of library for you know, all the different types of poses in your head, and obviously this can also come from like when you're drawing the piece itself, and you can be like, oh, okay, well, I'll remember this pose for later, you know. But it's good to try and exercise the amount of time you can spend just sort of remembering aspects of all of these poses and all of these like types of arrangements and body types and all that kind of stuff. But it's good to try and actively remember some of those elements, like what makes this pose really good for this situation and what makes this pose feel like it fits this scenario or something like that, so that later on when you are trying to design and sketch out like an idea, you're not constantly like, I have zero clue like what this could possibly be. I need to start from ground one, or like ground step one, square one of those. And you know, being able to get yourself started faster by having that already in your head of saying like, okay, well, this mood is very sad and melancholic, so I'm gonna pick a pose that's like sitting down or something, and maybe I can like work in the environment or work in something that they do, or something about their story. Definitely speeds up the process a lot, and any time that you can take to do that outside of making like your more important works is time well spent, I'd say, to the point where like you aren't necessarily going to be researching what pose to do, you're researching how to accurately draw that pose. I feel like that should be the goal, or the end goal for you, is to be doing research not to like necessarily be shopping around for a pose, but it's like you kind of know what you want, but now you're just looking for the specifics. Like, okay, well, do I want their head to be turned? And you're gonna look at some photos of people doing a certain motion, all kind of like like, for example, all generally sitting, but there's so many different ways to sit. So then you're like, okay, well, I think I want them to be leaning back instead of like leaning forward. Okay, now that's a whole new specific search. Then you're like, okay, well, leaning back, maybe they have their arm out, because I remember seeing this one photo and I really liked the shape of the arm, or I really liked the rhythm that this pose had. And then you can build everything off of the original idea, which was just, I think sitting down would be a cool mood for this piece. So that would be my recommendation. Whoops. Oh my gosh, there's another raid. Ergo Josh, thank you for the raid. Thank you so much. Sorry, I was busy answering questions, but thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. Do you have any tips for drawing clothing folds? Depends. Like, is it that you don't know what folds to draw? Is it that you don't know how to make them look realistic? Is it that you don't know how to arrange them? In like a satisfying way? Like, is there a specific to that? Because like, in general, my recommendation or my advice when it comes to drawing clothing folds has always been, this isn't in particular a thing that you should look at reference for, because there's such a breadth of different materials and fabrics and cloth that will affect like the shape of the folds because of the weight or the movement or the gravity of the fabric, dependent on the thread count and the weave and the lighting. And so it's like all that kind of stuff is going to change, and that's a lot of variables to have in your head when you aren't totally like sure about the technical aspects of it. So clothing folds in particular is something that you sort of learn from observation, from understanding like the physics of how a lot of this happens. Like, the two of the more recurring topics when it comes to clothing is like tension, right? You're always looking at where the fabric is being stretched, where it's being tensed, where it's being pulled. And so that is not something you can really learn just by like thinking about it in your head without actually observing. So that might be you know, looking at different types of fabric like cotton or satin. How does it fall from an object? What does it look like when it's being sewn to something and then pulled and stretched and all that kind of stuff? What fabrics are stretchy, what fabrics aren't stretchy, and what does that end up looking like when something has to like twist or turn underneath it or bend? Fabric very much depends on what's underneath, so the surface of the object and all that kind of stuff will change the fabric in a way. You know, all that kind of stuff is difficult to figure out on your own. So fabric is one of those things where I really recommend observation and like studying from photographs, making notes, trying to figure out like, okay, so what is it that's causing this reaction? What are common fabric folds that I see across multiple different types of fabrics? Is this a matter of like, this is because the fabric is thinner, this is because it's sheer, because it's made of a certain material, or is it because of the type of, like, you know, the pose or the body type or whatnot? All those things, pretty much the only way you can learn them is by looking at clothes, by looking at fabric, by doing your research and by doing your studies, learning from observation. Because that's kind of all I can really say, or at least all that I've sort of discovered and tried to figure out how to explain, because I don't feel like I know how to draw it as accurately as I could be. So mayhaps I just might not be the person to ask about this in particular. Do you like your Cintiq more now? As in another streamer, you said you preferred your Intuos. I mean, it's nice. Like, I think it would be an adjustment to go back to my Intuos, but I also don't necessarily feel like my art has improved or become easier to make because I have a Cintiq. But it's novel. It's like a gimmick. It's like, oh, cool, I can draw on my screen. But, again, function, I could have done all this stuff on my Intuos, and my Intuos is also a lot smaller, but my Intuos was kind of on the fritz, because I had that for a couple years, and it was starting to not connect to my computer, so kind of was in the market for a new tablet anyway. But in regards to, like, do I like it more? I think it's fun. Like, I don't think my opinion of a Cintiq was ever necessarily bad, but just in the manner of, like, I don't think it ever really changed much for me, and it still kind of doesn't, so I'd say my opinion is relatively the same. Made this guy look Asian. Have I beaten 14? I have not. I've not played since I last talked to you about it. Because I got pretty busy. I also realized, like, I play 14 whenever I reach, like, a point in my, like, arc of depression where I am so unproductive, it's not even funny. So I feel like I play 14 in those, like, low moments, where, I am not doing anything else. So, no, it's good. It's good. It's not that bad. It's just, like, I feel like I don't feel like a super big need to play it sometimes. But then, like, I'll go through a point where I'm like, I'm just gonna play 14 for, like, a week straight. So I imagine I'll probably want to play Endwalker in, like a month or two, maybe. And just finish it, because I'm really close. I'm really, really close, I feel like. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm, like, 30, 40 quests away from finishing. Like, I feel like I'm really, really close to it. So I definitely want to finish it just to get caught up. I was checking it earlier today because I was looking at, like, I noticed that it had some events happening, so I am curious. I might pick it back up just because it's kind of nice to log in and do it like a dungeon or something. I do want to try Reaper. I definitely do want to try Reaper, so who knows? Maybe that will pull me back in. Yeah, it's always fun. to even connect neck with the body. I always mess up and I have to do it like 5 times before I get it right. So I always just kind of guess, because whenever I draw, I always draw things from 3/4, so this is like my muscle memory at this point, but I always try to kind of guess, like, if I were to sort of think about like where the neck might be. This is a little bit shallow. I always try to start the neck behind the ear and try to figure out like what's a good sort of shallowness for the chin, depending on the kind of character. If they are super thin, if they have some like under double chin, kind of like little chub, that might change where the kind of neck will slope from. But I try to sort of imagine where it is, and then I try to make some kind of a guess. Some people have different measurements for this. I kind of just eyeball it. If I think the neck's too thick, I'll change it. If I think it's too thin, and it's not fitting the character, then I'll fix it again. But I think some people say like a fourth, a third in. I think a fourth is probably closer to what I do typically. Just making sure that I don't make it too thin, because I've done that before. And always starting it from behind the ear has been my habit. Gehenna, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub for a year. It has been a whole year. Thank you so much for sticking around, especially with a Prime sub where you have to resub every month. 'Tis crazy. Thank you. I'm grateful to have been the one you gave that to. Have I played Hades? Yes, I have. I have. It is a great game. Have you done the art for any games or anything like that? A lot of my stuff that I've been working on recently has not been released, but I have done work for, well, the one that has officially been released, is my illustrations that I did for Dota 2 back in 2020. But a lot of my stuff that is currently out is either uncredited, so I don't know if I can actually say if I've done that work, as in they haven't released like any details about whether or not who worked on it or what. So I don't know if I can say, and also a lot of them are still under NDA and not released. So that's kind of the only game that I can really talk about. But yeah. Not much. Yes, it'd be nice to be able to talk about some of the stuff I've been working on. But that is the unfortunate thing when you start working for other people. And their projects are so much bigger than, like, you. They do not want anyone to hear about it until they have their PR team craft all the stuff. So I have no clue when I'll actually be able to share any of that information. But I hope soon. Within the next couple of years, I'm hoping I'll actually be able to say, like, hey, I did this. So that'll be, you know, the hope. Love you, Marshall. Hey, Koo. Hello. I love you too. He is. Yes. I'll tell you, I promise. I just gotta wait until everything's, like, official. Because game companies sometimes are kind of weird. Like, they can have some pretty bad manners sometimes when you're like kind of floating in terms of their favor. And I don't think this company will do that to me, but I'm also like, I want to be safe. And it's kind of like the situation where you're applying to college or schools and you tell people, like, what schools you applied to, and if you don't get in, it's like, it's like shame and embarrassment and, like, kind of like just, like, kind of fear. So instead of putting myself through that, I'm just not gonna say what it is until I am 100% totally certain. I have been working with them for a while, but I am currently in the process with them of formalizing stuff. So once that is all done, I will definitely let you know. How much did you have in a portfolio to apply for freelance positions, or were you approached for work? For freelance stuff, I often was approached for it. I did not personally apply for freelance stuff. When it came to actual like job stuff, that's different. But freelance work generally, I just had my stuff out. A lot of them came sort of from when I did commissions more regularly, and like people had like word of mouth and saw my art around on my social media, and like that's where I started getting all my freelance and contract stuff. Generally, I feel like you apply when it comes to contract, but for freelance, it's a little bit harder to find those. They're not really posted on boards and stuff. Generally, you'd find those like people posting on their Instagrams or Twitters being like, hey, we're looking for freelancers in this thing, like email us or something. That's been my experience with freelance, at least. Recently decided to heed your advice from streaming the other week. I asked how you suggest becoming more comfortable drawing larger. It's kind of tough because like sometimes people ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know if I could contextualize it in any other way than just like try, which I always feel bad giving because it's such a terrible way to frame advice, because it's when you're on the other side of it, it doesn't feel like that's actually useful. But there are certain things where I'm like, it kind of just comes from a like legitimate and like literal attempt to like put all the pieces together, and hard to tell someone to do that. And I oftentimes feel extremely like nervous about stuff whenever people are like, how do I do this? It's like, just do it. I don't know. But that is one of the things where it's like, I'm glad it helped because I don't know if I could have described it in either way. I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of stuff, especially for me, I feel like there's things where I get really in my head about it, and truthfully the answer to my question is what I already know is the answer, or I kind of suspect it is the answer, but I'm kind of unwilling to try it because I want to think that there's a better answer that's so much smarter and so much more intelligent, or even just like gonna be easier than the one that I thought of. But generally, people know the answers to their own questions. It is just whether or not you apply them in a way that actually makes a difference for you. And it makes giving advice kind of tough because I don't ever want to put people in a position where they're like, well, I kind of already knew that, so it was sort of pointless to ask you. But functionally, advice across multiple, or across, and here's my hot take, across pretty much every field is generally the same. All advice has been said, all advice has been given. Even the cringy ones that are super cliche and stereotypical are generally good advice, just said way too many times by people with not super clear or cohesive, comprehensive intentions. But generally people know the answers to their own questions. And whenever I give advice, I'm just like, I hope this is just not super Captain Obvious of me. because I don't want to be. But it does make it slightly more complicated. This is, I think, someone's pencil brush. I don't know where I got it. I've had it for so long, but I don't think I've changed the name because I don't name things. So if you want to try looking for it, maybe you'll find it. But I've had this brush for a super long time, and I don't know where it came from. Have I had the chance to play a bit of the Risk of Rain 2 expansion? No, but I want to. I want to so bad. The only problem is, the two friends that I typically play it with, one of them is playing Destiny, and then the other one's playing Elden Ring. So I'm like, damn, neither of you two are gonna play Risk of Rain with me. And I've also just been busy, so it's just like, I was hoping they would want to play Risk of Rain, and then I'd be like, well, okay, I cannot work for tonight, but they are so busy playing other games that I'm like, damn, I don't have a reason to not be working, because I should be working instead of playing games, and I was hoping they would be the ones to convince me to not work, but, so, yeah. I actually haven't played any games in a month, like, I think I opened Final Fantasy XIV once, like a couple weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, maybe? But I don't feel like I've played any games. Except I did I did re-download an old Idle Rhythm game that I really liked. And it's terrible. I feel my gambling addiction coming back. Which sucks because I've spent years trying to get rid of my gambling addiction with Idle Rhythm games. But I recently re-downloaded one because my partner and I were talking about rhythm games, and I was like, because we recently went to Round 1, which is an arcade. I don't know if it's around other places, but it's an arcade chain here in California. And we went to Round 1, and there are a bunch of rhythm games there that are super cool, and it made me think of my own Idle Rhythm games, which by comparison are super boring. But I re-downloaded them, and I was like, uh-oh, I feel like my gambling addiction is coming back, because for some reason, there's some little lizard in my brain that's like, yes, you do want that PNG of an idol anime girl for absolutely no functional reason except to have it. But Bandori does have some really nice illustrations, so I'm always like, oh yeah, of course I'll shill for my girl. Yeah, to me, I think that sometimes I end up wanting to avoid failure, so I ask out of hopes that they might be a surefire solution. Yeah, I talk about this a little bit in my class 101 chapter, which a lot of people don't end up getting to, but it's one of my favorite chapters. It's the last one of the class, which is all about, like, mental health and happiness. And I talk about how I had to recontextualize failure in order for me to move past like a big hurdle in my life, because I didn't understand why I was so afraid of it, when if I really thought about how I spent most of my time, I spent most of my time drawing in my room alone, not in front of a ton of people, not in front of like friends or whatnot. Even when I'm not streaming, it's like I draw in my room alone. So why is it that I spent at some point so much of my brain space afraid of failing in front of the only person who knows me the best. Like, I am so, like, there are no secrets between me and myself. So why am I so terrified to fail in front of the only person who wouldn't judge me? As bad as other people, I guess, because I still judge myself. But, like, you know, I had to recontextualize failure in that way because it just kind of felt like it was a mental block I put on myself for no reason except to perform. But I was performing in private. So, yeah, it was probably one of my favorite chapters that I ever did. But, you know, I think it's just something that we all learn. We learn that failure is something to be ashamed of, something to be afraid of, and then, you know, you grow up and everyone's like, don't be afraid of failure. Failure is good for you. And it's like, that's not what you taught me. That is not what you taught me. That's not how you raised me. You raised me to be afraid so deeply of failing that when I do fail, I feel like I've failed more than just me, right? Which is all you do when you make a bad drawing, is like, oh, well, whatever. Like, that's all it is. But, like, when you make a bad drawing, it always feels so much bigger. It's like, what does this mean for me? Like, what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for, like even if you drag other people into it, it's like, oh, what does this mean, like, about my ability to do things? Am I worth anything as a person if I can't do this one thing? And it's like, what do other people think about me, you know? It's like weird how our brains do that. And learning or continuing to learn how to be okay with that has been I think the biggest change for me in my, like, current state of life, state of being, is trying to figure out how to just be okay with the weird, toxic, like, bad, negative feelings that come up every time I feel like I didn't do well enough, or I didn't, I could be more, or I could be better, or I should be better. It's like, why does any of this matter? Like, I am whatever I am. Art is an incredibly honest, way of expression, or a form of expression. So I just have to take the facts of who I am, how I draw, and where my skill set is at, and just be like, okay, well, now I just have to figure out solutions to this, because obviously I'm not happy with where I am, and that's fine. I have to be fine with that. But I can also use that quote-unquote failure as a way to direct where I go in the future, as opposed to allowing it to kind of, you know, become this, like, pit of tar where I can't move forward from it, which is what it usually used to be for me. But, you know, complex feelings that I'm still trying to learn how to work through. That chapter was definitely one of the first times I've ever had to, like, sit down and think about, like, what does failure mean to me? And it's kind of, I still think, half-baked ideas strung together in whoever I am currently, and I hope that as I get older, I'll have much more mature reasons, or much more mature ways to see it, because a lot of that Class 101 script was very much like my first time really sort of contextualizing how I think about design and art, and a bunch of different things like social media and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that as I get older, I'll have much better ways to describe it. I feel like even things that I've said on stream since I've written the scripts have been much more succinct. Like, episodes that were like 10 minutes long could have been 5 if I had just written it better, but it's okay. It's whatever. It's fine. As for my sketch is better than the final product, do you have any advice for overcoming this? It's really frustrating. I don't know if I have advice for overcoming it, because I feel very much the same way. It's why I don't really do, like, clean work after, or cleaning my work after I've sketched it, because I almost always love my sketch so much more. I don't think I have really any advice for how to deal with it, mainly because My solution to this was to just, my solution to it was just, I'm not even gonna clean up my stuff. I'm just gonna learn how to paint, and I don't have to clean up anything when I paint. And then I started realizing how much I hated painting, so then I went back to drawing with lines, and now I kind of just don't draw anything after the first time, so I just kind of have to get it right the first time, which works for me now, but it wouldn't have worked for me when I first had this problem. So, you know, I'd say it'd be good to analyze why it is that you don't like your work after you've cleaned it up. Is it because it feels stiff? Is it because it loses some of the life? Is it because, you know, you feel like, maybe you would have, you know, it just has so much more like personality or something like that, or if you feel like it just ended up feeling not alike your sketch at all, like it looks different, it looks, you know, maybe less aesthetically pleasing, maybe you just don't have like a good grasp on it, because I feel that like all the time still, and your solution to it is just gonna have to be based on what is it that you actually like about your work in the sketch phase. My original solution was to learn how to paint, and that worked for a while because it allowed me to kind of look at it from a new lens and look at sketching as sort of, this is step 0. This is not step 1. Step 1 is like laying down flat and whatnot, laying down flat colors and base colors and figuring out my lighting. It's like, step 0 is the sketch phase, and eventually I stopped doing sketches sometimes, but, you know, it's like a totally new way to think, and then when I went back to drawing with line art, it's like, okay, well, I know I hate line arting. I hate cleaning up my stuff, so I'm just gonna have to figure out how to do this right the first time, so that my sketches and my line art kind of merge together in the sort of pseudo version of themselves, which is why my stuff is not usually very clean unless I try very hard to make it clean, which is what a lot of my sketches that I do here are. I try to make them a lot cleaner, because I am very not, I'm not very oriented to finishing my stuff, so, when things don't look super clean, I don't really care. But on stuff that I have to do for work, or things that I do on this channel, when I stream and stuff and do commissions, I try to be a little bit cleaner than I normally would be, just because, it's for other people, not for me. But yeah, I would recommend looking at your sketches and figuring out what is it about your sketches that you like, and kind of looking at how other people have sort of, added that life back into their more finished stuff. And a lot of it could just come down to more technical things, like your line quality is not super great when you line art because you're too focused on making it look clean or whatnot, that you end up losing a lot of the really nice expressiveness, or maybe you have a certain style of line arting that you haven't discovered yet, or that you aren't comfortable with yet, and so it feels kind of awkward and it feels forced. It could be that maybe you just aren't really destined to do line art, and there's actually a solution for you that allows you to keep your sketches, but you just kind of have to modulate your kind of approach to it so that it is cleaner, it looks nicer, you can pass it off. A lot of personal experimentation with answering that question, I imagine, because ultimately this does come down to, like, how do you make a nice piece of art that doesn't have to be clean to be finished, right? That's sort of the common association, is like, if it's clean, that means it's finished. If it's not clean, that means it's unfinished. Not true, right? A lot of people have been able to make art that looks finished without it actually being clean. It's a really thin line to hit, but people have done it, and it's like, how did you possibly make that happen? I still haven't hit that line, I feel like, but I'm trying to, because I hate making finished stuff. I hate making super clean stuff. So we're on this journey together, I think. Esida, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 18 months, and welcome. Was the purposeful practice also part of the mental health chapter, or was it like right before? I've said this in chapter 4. Also been a huge perspective shift for me. And yeah, you can add your thoughts to any conversation. It's fine. It was in the. I think it was in like the mental health chapter, because that chapter also just had a bunch of like side conversations I had, which was like practice versus like purposeful practice and studying and how I've studied and like my rant on grind culture and stuff. So yeah, I think it probably was. Hi Sunburns, I've been good. This week has been busy, but it is okay. It was a pretty good week, I'd say. Well, yeah, no, it was a pretty good week. Is it because of that one thing, or is it just in general? Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people really like it, and some people, I think, just don't. Which I don't know, makes sense. I think for some people it's undue stress. I need to figure out how to draw feet from the bottom. Do not know how to draw toes from that perspective. If I play my cards right, I can just hide the feet there, so I don't have to draw the toes. I should draw the toes. That's actually the real game of posing. Like, how do you pose it so that you don't have to draw the stuff you don't like drawing? That's like end game. for learning how to pose stuff. It's avoiding the things you don't like drawing. Which for me are very random things. Okay, I think that's it for this one. This is a comic or book that people keep referring to chapters of. Oh no, my class 101 thing is a course that I made for the website Class 101. And they divide up sections of the class into chapters. So this person has a couple of different requests. How do you make your drawings look so good that you don't have to flip it? I do that by flipping it all the time. So I avoid that problem, because I have that problem, by always flipping my drawings, so that I will always be looking at it flipped sometimes. Like, the first hotkey that I have bound to my remote for the Cintiq is my hotkey for flipping the canvas. It's the one that I use most often while I'm drawing, other than like my finger rests on the flip horizontal hotkey and the eraser and the brush. So I am prepared, because I too have a problem with drawing things and having it flipped and then crying because it does not look very good. Maybe. It'll probably take me a while, but we'll see. What's the brush that you're lining with? It's called MH8B brush. I don't know where I got it. I've had it for a very long time, so I don't know if you'll be able to find it in some brush pack if you Google it, but that is the one. That is the brush I'm currently using, because I felt like it. Yeah, at this point I've kind of just accepted I probably won't ever be able to fix this part of me. I'll just have to work with it, and by working with it, I mean obsessively flipping the canvas. I don't know anything about Garfield, so I don't know, I'm ambivalent to him. He's a cat. I like cats. Does your toes tilt or flat on your desk? I always draw on a tilt for me. How did you balance doing studies versus creative pieces without being dependent on one of them? I tended to merge the two. Also, hi. I tended to merge the two, so I would try to do studies, but always have it in the context, or do it in the context of, like, I'm still drawing my own character, or I'm still painting my own character, or something like that. Because I'm only ever interested in drawing my own stuff. I don't like doing studies. I feel like I generally don't do them right either. When I just sit down, I'm like, I'm gonna study something. So for me, I always try to implement what I'm trying to study with something I already wanted to draw, which is, like, usually my own characters or my own stories. And then I'm just like, okay, so in this one, I'm going to be focusing on, like, drawing the clothing right, or I'm going to be focusing on this, like, arm muscle that I was looking at before. I'll still do, like, studies and stuff, but usually after doing the study, I'll then go and try to apply it, because for me, doing studies does not mean I've actually learned anything. In fact, I usually find that I don't learn anything from doing studies, so I depend a lot on afterwards going through and trying to apply the thing that I just tried to learn. And oftentimes, if you do that and you do it a couple times more after that, a couple days later, you'll realize that you didn't actually learn all that much, which then informs you, like, okay, what else do I need to do in order to learn these things better? And that's kind of the more important part, is what you take away from a study, not necessarily what the study looked like. Which is why I tend to find that studies aren't actually all that interesting to do, and they're not very helpful in my experience. Not that you shouldn't do them, but that you should always be doing more than just a study, right? So that's kind of my experience, I guess. Have I done 3D stuff lately? No, I have not. No time. too busy trying to be better at the thing that I said, or the thing that I'm supposed to be good at. Trying to be good at just 2D concept is a full-time job already. But I would like to do some 3D someday. I'd like to learn how to do it again. I have character reference, but I'm drawing everything from imagination, for the most part. So I'm totally struggling on this arm part. On average, how often on average do you draw? I draw for work and I draw for fun. So like, if I'm awake for, how long are people usually awake for? Like 16 hours? Is that an okay time to be awake? I feel like I'm close to like 19 hours awake. 16 hours, okay. I'm probably drawing for about 12 to 13 of those hours. Because it's like, I'm working, and then there's like in between where I'm like drawing for myself. Most days, except for the weekends, I'm trying to not draw nearly as much on the weekends. How do I not get burnt out? I get burnt out. There's no way to not get burnt out. But recently I've been trying to frame burning out as just sort of like a natural part of the process. Because yeah, I mean, I have to draw a lot. I do that for my job. But I also enjoy it. And then there are nights where I don't draw after work. And then, so that's only like, what, maybe 8 to 10 hours of drawing, depending on if I'm working overtime or not, which doesn't get counted because oftentimes overtime is not counted. So it depends, right, on the day. And generally, you know, it's like knowing your body. So like there are days where I'm like, I'm not gonna draw after work today, I'm just gonna play a game, or I'm just gonna read or watch something, or like chill, play with my cat maybe. But there are nights where I'm like, you know, I could keep going, I could keep drawing, because I want to draw my own stuff, right? That's where a lot of my personal enjoyment comes from, is drawing my own characters and my own stuff in my own free time, doing whatever I want. So typically when it comes to that stuff, I'm more energized, but I definitely do get burnt out a lot. Not a lot, but I do get burnt out, and it's not avoidable, and I don't really necessarily think it should be. It's just like, you know, natural response to being under a certain amount of stress, or a certain amount of like working conditions for a while. Because if you think about it, like, even if you're not super stressed or super overworked, or like cranking on like some deadline, you're probably gonna get burnt out working in a creative job, because you're constantly being asked to do and draw for other people's ideas. And if you're anything like me, who kind of fundamentally subsists on just enjoying the stuff that I do, having to work on stuff for other people, whether or not it's commissions or if it's like an assignment, I'm gonna get burnt out, because it's not what I enjoy doing. And if you've ever done commissions, you realize, like, it's not really that fun. Like, I don't know for some people, but for me at least, I hated doing commissions, because I generally don't enjoy drawing other people's characters. For stuff like this, I'm okay with it, because it's for a good cause, or was back in 2020. It's for a good cause, and I generally enjoy drawing commissions more on stream than I do in my personal life, right? If it's on my own time, much rather be drawing my own stuff. But if I'm doing it on stream, it's okay. Generally though, when I was doing commissions back in the day, hated it, absolutely hated it. So I think burnout's kind of just normal sometimes. Obviously there are things where you burn out because you get so stressed, or you've been kind of like on your shit for so long that, yeah, that's a bad burnout, right? But I don't know. I try not to be afraid of burnout. I try to be very cognizant of like the stuff that I'm doing to myself and what I'm putting myself through during the week, so that when I do feel like I want to take a break, I can. I'm ready. I'm prepared for that. Just because I think that's a part of becoming a professional, is getting to know yourself more, so that you are a much more reliable or you have a much more reliable meter for like when you need to take a break, when you can take on more work, when you can push yourself, when you should like take it easy. That's kind of like knowing yourself, right? It's like an athlete knowing their body, or knowing their limits. You know, for us, our body is part of our craft, and knowing when you should take a break, when you should slow down, is very important. Let me see. Catching up. How long did it take you to get good at drawing without using an underline sketch? So probably my whole life, right? Like, I've been drawing for almost 22 years. And pretty much the entire time I've been kind of working towards this. Not purposefully. I haven't actually been like, you know, oh, this is something I want to do. It's just, I think I've been working towards this mindset my whole life, which is wanting to be able to draw things from imagination, because I've always been much more of that kind of a person, and I've always really enjoyed that so much more than like drawing from reference. And because I think I never really got too much of that classic arts education in terms of like doing foundational classes and stuff, I somehow managed to skip a lot of those years, except for my first year at SCAD, which I enjoyed. I'm not a very technically strong person. I just really enjoy drawing characters and kind of abstracting them, or stylizing them, I guess. So this is like a very scrappy development that I've gotten myself into. But I'd say probably my whole life, right? I think I was always meant to end up in this kind of style of drawing. How do you get over burnout? You allow yourself to heal from burnout. That's how you get over it. I feel like people... It's a conversation you have to have with yourself. Like, what is a good time for you to leave? Like, to accept that you're past burnout and now you're just kind of, you know, you can go back to work. It's really up to the person to decide whether or not what they're feeling is burnout or what they're feeling is something else. Generally, I found that I don't really want to fight burnout, at least in the very beginning of it, because it's just kind of oh, excuse me, please don't speak. But sorry, I couldn't hear myself because I can't multitask. You kind of have to let yourself, at least in the first bit of your burnout, like, just kind of accept that you're in a burnout and give yourself time. Because there's a reason why you're burnt out, right? And you need to give yourself time to heal from that. But then once you feel like you don't feel that innate exhaustion anymore and you're ready to kind of take stuff on, that's when you can kind of, you know, ease yourself out of it by doing stuff that you enjoy, which I think is really important. You should always be trying to keep in mind what it is that you actually enjoy doing. Whether or not that's like your own hobbies, whether or not that's like your own preferences for what you draw. Like, ultimately, you should always be keeping in mind, like, oh, you know, when I feel more up to it, like, I really want to try drawing like this project, or I really want to try developing my character more, or I want to do an illustration. Keep those ideas when you have them in the back of your mind, or like literally write them down, so that when you're coming out of a burnout, you have stuff that you can do. I have a running list of things that I want to work on, or stuff that I felt like doing. The clearest example was like when I got out of working on my class 101 stuff. I was like, I'm going to practice painting again. I'm gonna pick up painting again. I'm gonna get so much better at painting, because I haven't picked it up in a while. And while I was making those videos, something I felt very strongly was like, I want to keep developing my skills. Like, I feel like I haven't been able to really just like sit down and draw. So I was really excited coming out of my burnout from that experience to really like just sit down and do some really like head down painting exercises and just kind of like getting it back into that. And it's because I had that list coming out of it that I could really pinpoint, like, okay, what do I want to do now that I feel less exhausted? So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my recommendation. And this design, because it's based off of a mini, right? So I'm kind of trying to look at this mini for what the design is, but I don't really know what the style of this mini is supposed to be. I think it's like kind of steampunky, goth steampunk, death metal steampunk sort of, but I don't know. I'm not well versed enough with like mechanical stuff to really design this, so I'm just gonna have to wing it. emo kid, and yes, I am on Twitch. Was patience something you had to work on when doing art? I'd say so. Yeah, I think patience is sort of, it is definitely a skill that, you kind of have to learn how to apply for yourself. Like, I was always impatient drawing, when I was drawing, so I would always, like, draw super fast and never really take any care with how I was putting down lines, and that's why, you know, nowadays I talk a lot about purposeful drawing and all that kind of stuff, because I've really tried to slow down, and that's why I draw pretty slow now. But that's not really an issue, or, well, no. It's an issue, but it's not as much of an issue because I know why I'm doing it. I'm trying to be a lot more clear and a lot more definitive about where I put my lines down, because I've discovered that that's really important to me. I really want to be someone or an artist that, like, has much better ideas about like, or I have a much better control over my work, and I have things put places that I want, like, sorry, brain thinking ahead of my mouth. I want to be very definitive about how I place down lines, and I want to be definitive about what details I put down, what shapes, what silhouettes, all those kinds of things. I want to be in control of everything in a drawing, and that requires a certain amount of focus, a certain amount of attention, one that I couldn't have had if I was as impatient as I used to be. If I was always just kind of rushing through a drawing and not taking the time to really think about it, I think I would have probably never gotten to a point where I could do what I'm currently doing now. I don't think I could have been a good designer because I would have just, you know, rushed through the design and said, like, first idea's fine, like, you know, it's what I wanted, it's okay. Not having the patience to understand that there's always probably something much better, much cooler, much more in line with my original concept if I only took the time to figure that out. I don't think design would have ended up working out for me. So, and it's still something I'm learning to do, right? I'm still very impatient. I am super impatient with painting, which is my current struggle. So I'm trying to slow down and really take time to, like, look at my paintings, not just finish them in one go, like, actually sitting down a couple days later to look at it and work on it again, because I have a bad habit of just, like, doing everything in one sitting and then saying, like, if it's not done in one sitting, I'm never getting it done. I'm trying to not do that anymore. So yeah, I'd say patience is 100% a really great thing to have. And definitely a skill that I wish I had earlier, but you know, when you grow up, you also mature in your art as well. How do you start studying 3D? Like, are there fundamentals I should know about? 3D is very much more technical, so yes, fundamentals include, like, good practice with modeling. It's learning the program. It's learning, like, the whole process of creating a 3D object. So yeah, there's, like, a ton of fundamentals that you will probably need to know before you even get started just making whatever you want. Very much more about what program you're using, the process by which you model, the demands of, like, the technical demands of, like, what your low poly is gonna look like. Are you able to use normals? Like, what is your rendering program? Like, all that kind of stuff. A lot of front-loading information, but once you know it, you're pretty much set. And I'll hydrate. What do you have to say for beginner digital artists that want to be part of the animation art industry? Go for it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's really anything to say other than, if you love it, you'll love it. You'll have to learn to deal with the unfortunate realities of it, but ultimately a lot of us do it, or a lot of us are a part of the art industry because we enjoy doing it. Or there's, like, a reward for it. Not always, but the vast majority of us, I feel like, genuinely love what we do. And I think it can be fulfilling. It's just, you're gonna have to learn what fight, like, you're gonna have to learn what the fight's all about. You're gonna have to learn what are, like, the current injustices within our industry, and also the ways that we can make it better, and learn how you're gonna be a part of that. Because I think, genuinely, like, I would not pick another career. But I also am very, very much aware of how shitty it is. But, again, like, I am content to, you know, be cognizant of, like, all the things that could be better, be a part of that change, actively try to make sure that the workplace is good for other people, that I actively contribute to a better workplace. That I'm actively supporting my coworkers and people that I genuinely care about. Not companies, but the people that actually work in those companies. Those are the people that are important, and those are the people that make my job worth doing. So, you know, it's understanding that yes, there are hardships, but the vast majority of us genuinely enjoy what we do for work. Because very rarely will you get to say in a different industry, I make fictional characters for a living. I draw them, I paint them, I think about how they affect other people in this big project all about fictional things, and I get paid to do it. So in ways I can't complain, but I can, because I will. I'd say give yourself time. Like, I understand, I think I understand sort of what you're feeling. There's also an element to art that I think doesn't get talked about enough, which is just, like, your art and your perspective on art will change as you grow up and you mature as a person. So it could just be that, you know, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate, you're figuring out a bunch of stuff. It might not be time for you to really grapple with patience as something to learn currently. Or, you know, you can just think about it, but you don't really have to think too deeply about having that work, like working on patience on top of everything else that you're doing. Because it is something that I think comes with time and with experience, and just because you can't think about it right now, or just because you struggle to think about it right now, does not make you lesser of an artist, does not make you, or does not put you behind other people. I think it's just not time yet for you to think about it. But always good to be thinking ahead, I think. Always good to be looking to future you and figuring out what can you do today to make future you, or to make your time developing as a human easier for future you, I guess. If that English made any sense now that it's left my mouth. I don't know, I always think about me in the future. I think about, like, all the things that I currently think are cool or fine or whatever now about myself, that later on I'll be like, I cannot believe she thought that, I cannot believe she said that. Because, you know, I feel better about myself today than I did about myself in high school. And how I thought about myself in high school, way better than how I felt in middle school. But, you know, give me a year, a couple months, like 5 years, I'll feel like the person that I am today is so much more naive and cringy and innocent and whatnot. So it's kind of fun to think about, like, who will I be in the future? How do I make sure that she has, you know, the best tools for success? Because I am excited to be who that person is, and I hope that everything that I do today will put her in a good spot so that she can do whatever she does best. And, you know, something I learned in the past couple of years was that patience was something I really didn't have. And it's something that I should have, because as I work today to develop and really reinforce that, like, virtue of patience, or just attribute of patience, I feel like my art has gotten better because I'm actually taking time to look at my stuff, to like think about it in a deeper way. And I don't know, it's just been good. But I also know probably wouldn't have been able to do this a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. This is very much a me in the present moment kind of a thing. So don't worry too much about it. It could just be it's not your time yet. And, you know, there'll be a point where, like, you'll think about it and you're like, wait, like, this makes sense to me. Like, everything, all of this stuff makes so much sense to me now. So yeah. Companies are made up of people, but corporations and higher level decisions made in companies, you know, don't deserve the same level of devotion, in my hot take opinion. I've met way too many people in my life where their whole thing is that they want to work at a company. They want to work at Riot. They want to work at Naughty Dog or whatever. And those are great places to work, mainly because of the people that are there. And the atmosphere of a studio will change drastically depending on who leaves and who's present at the time. And, you know, my perspective after having worked for, like, a year or two in-house, like, actually at a place, is so much that what matters are the people that you meet there and the people that you work with. It does not matter what company you work with, right? Or work for. The company will decide what projects you work on, which is important. But good projects made by terrible people or people that don't really make you feel comfortable will still suck. But a project that's sort of middling with people that actively make your day better, you can work with that. You can still find ways to enjoy it. And for me, at least, I very much value more so the people that I work with over the place that I work at. And that's kind of been my current, I guess, like, decision about my feelings on the topic. Because, you know, when you grow up, you have so many things that you want to do, and the easiest way to contextualize that is, oh, I want to work on this project or in this studio because they made my favorite game or my favorite animation or whatnot. Which is fair, right? That's not like a bad way to go about it. But it's to recognize that you're not beholden to a studio, you're not beholden to a company. Ultimately, you are not their priority, and I have found so much more joy in talking to and working with people that make me feel like a valued member of the team, and make me feel like I'm contributing to something, that we're all kind of helping each other learn new things, and I'm tackling creative problems with them. That's a feeling that you kind of don't get because you work at a studio. It's like, you're getting that feeling because the people you work with are genuinely good people. And you like working with them. So do you think fan art in your portfolio is okay just as long as it connects to the company you're applying to, or more specifically, spin-off fan art as a new content for an established IP? I generally recommend that you don't have fan art in your portfolio, but to put that on your site and on your social media instead. Just because it's safer. I think certain studios probably wouldn't mind it, but I don't know. I feel like generally I'd keep that for more of your personal sites as opposed to like the portfolio you submit for a place. More and more now, jobs are just expecting like a link to your website, so they'll see it, probably, but tons of people do fake fan-made League of Legends skins. I don't know if I would recommend putting skins like directly in your portfolio, but having it on your site is very helpful because they will check out your site. And again, most places nowadays don't just ask for a portfolio, they ask for a whole link. So, have it there. But my gut reaction to that question is probably don't put that directly in your portfolio. I think it's just much more interesting to see your own concepts and your own ideas. But what you should do is pick a project that is in line with the genre of the studio you're trying to apply to, or the project that you're trying to apply to. Like, if you have information on what kind of genre it is, like if you're gonna apply to a fantasy game, have fantasy themed stuff in your project that you feel are very much in line with what they're looking for. But fan art stuff, not so much, at least in my opinion. Plenty of people could probably say it's fine, and I'd be inclined to probably agree. I don't really have strong feelings on the topic. Do I sell any of my brushes? Some of them, yes, are available for people who are subs. So if you are Twitch Prime sub, which I think you are, if you link your Twitch to your Discord and check the Discord itself, you'll see a sub-only Discord channel, and you can download all the ones that have currently been shared on your own. I want it on his shoulder. freehand. Probably gonna make this a little bit smaller. Well, thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed your time. Hopefully I'll see you around. Have a good rest. Yeah, it's really hard. I very much do not do hard surface, so this has been very complicated. But I am glad it's turning out okay, even though I don't exactly know what's happening. How tough is it to draw something robotic? For me, extremely, because I don't do hard surface stuff very often, and it's like totally different side of your brain type of different. I feel like if you tend to enjoy drawing like people and you prefer drawing like cloth or whatnot, then drawing hard surface stuff can be pretty complicated. I am such an organic person. I love drawing like cloth and fabric and humans and hair and like super soft things. So I'm very much an organic artist versus like hard surface. Robots, architecture, cars, props, like can get pretty complicated for me. But knowing how to do them is very good. It's a very good skill to have. So I've had to learn to some extent, but never really been good at it. And occasionally I'll get extra practice like this one. Having to come up with stuff. So I think it's just something you kind of have to learn how to do at some point in your career. Because quite a few projects want stuff like this, like sci-fi stuff. Very useful. I just am a big baby and I don't want to learn. What do you think is the hardest thing to draw from a mind? Like anything you're not comfortable drawing, I guess. I don't know. Like for someone who does cars and like mechs and stuff, like they're probably it's so easy for them to just pull like that sort of object out of their brain and just onto paper. For me, anything outside of humans with clothes on, I'm totally dog shit at. Like, I cannot, for the life of me, do it from imagination. So I kind of have to sort of severely invent on the fly, use reference, do all that kind of stuff. And this is very much like, I am inventing all of this and my brain is melting, but it's turning out sort of. But yeah, I feel like anything that you're not comfortable with drawing is probably going to be the thing that sucks the most to draw from imagination. But anything that's like super complex is hard to pose. So I imagine maybe that's it. Like, if you have a super complicated design and you're having to do like an arrangement with it that's really complicated, super foreshortened stuff, that can get kind of complicated and gross and messy. But yeah, like, I am so much more comfortable tackling that than like being asked to draw like a bike from imagination, or having to draw even like a gun or a chair from imagination. Like, I can't do those kinds of things super easily, so I loathe ever having to draw props. Like, if you're here in the beginning of my streams, you know, I hate drawing guitars, hate drawing instruments. I can't draw a guitar, I can't draw a chair from imagination without severe effort. And that's just because I'm not comfortable drawing those things. But I should be, and I should work on it, and I am sort of working on it. But yeah. How would you advise artists to draw from How would you advise artists to draw from reference? I would advise... Well, it depends. Like, do you mean, like, referencing while you're drawing, or doing studies? Because, like, drawing from reference while you're actually drawing, is a slightly different thing, because the main thing there is to not allow the reference to take over what you're trying to draw, what you're trying to achieve, which is very easy to do, because you grow really reliant on the reference that you have, and you don't want to stray too far away from it, because there's a reason why you're using reference. But some people are super dependent on it when they draw, and it ends up that, you know, they get to a point where they can't draw without it because they've never developed the muscles to draw without it. It's like, I guess, what would be a good, like, metaphor or analogy for this? Like, say if you're trying to be able to write with both hands, right? You're trying to learn how to be ambidextrous, which is the term for being able to do stuff with both hands. But you only ever focus on training your right hand. Well, you know, it's like people who use reference while they're trying to draw something, but they never really practice drawing that thing without reference, or trying to test their own knowledge about that thing without reference. That's kind of the over-reliance of reference that I tend to tell people to be wary of, because I think there's value in knowing what you do know, and testing what you know, because you can use reference and rely on it, and you can just blindly trust that thing. It's like a crutch, right? Can you really learn to walk if you only ever walk with assistance? Once you take that assistance away, you kind of have to relearn how to walk again based on all of the other things that, all the other, like, the things that you learned while using the crutch, right? Or I guess tricycles, bicycles, right? Which is totally weird because I don't know how to ride a bike, but, you know, that kind of a thing. So when people are trying to use reference while they're drawing, that's one of the biggest things I try to tell them to look out for, is like, when try to figure out when you stop using a reference to help you accomplish something, and suddenly copying the reference is the accomplishment, right? It's when, oh, you know, I've used this reference to draw this arm pose, but you use it every time you need to draw an arm. What? Is it my comment about how I don't know how to ride a bike? You know, that's when you kind of... Okay, stop. You're distracting me from giving advice. So stop it. I know I don't know how to ride a bike. I still don't. Whatever. But you know, like, that's the thing I generally tend to worry about, right? The way to get over that is to really treat reference as a guide, not as a rule. And to learn what it is you're trying, or to be very aware of what you're trying to use that reference for, right? Be aware of what it's meant to do, what the end goal is for using this piece of reference, and realize when it's doing so much more than that. Realize when you're starting to lean on this photo way more than just a guide to help you accomplish an end goal. But then also, you know, there's the idea of using reference for studies. That too, in a very similar way, has the same trap of like, when does the study become just an attempt to copy the reference, as opposed to using the reference to help you learn whatever you wanted to learn, right? And that's kind of why when I do studies, I try to merge it with drawing something I actually wanted to draw, because then that pushes me to like look at this thing, this photo reference, and say, I still want to draw my character on top of all of this. I don't want to be copying this reference. I don't want to paint like a direct copy of this photo, because that's not what I wanted to draw. And that helps me not rely too much on the reference and still give myself a chance to really like invent and have fun, because that's my preference, right? But there are people that I know that when they do studies, they just try to copy and paint the study exactly as it looks in the photo, which is fine. That's like a whole skill in itself. But what do you learn after that, right? It's all about what do you learn once you're done with the study, or once you're done with the reference. The unfortunate thing about references is that you can learn nothing, and that could be it, right? And that's what you want to avoid. So my recommendation with references is to be very clear about what it is you're using it for, and to allow yourself the liberty and the chance to take some creative, like make some creative choices about it, right? Because you don't have to stick to your reference, and you don't have to follow it just to, you know, justify using it. You can use it whenever you want. And you can deviate from your reference if you feel like you kind of want to try something new or make a different choice. Don't treat your references as gospel. Don't make them this like most important thing that you have to copy, because frankly, I don't think copying them actually helps you all that much. And when you're using them for studying, the same rule applies. Like, what's important is what you're trying to learn from the study, not the fact that the study looks accurate or whatnot. Accuracy is not usually the goal, but it could be for you. And if you are a classical fine artist, maybe realism is your thing. But generally, a lot of the people who ask me for advice aren't realism people, so I'm going to assume that that's not the case for you. My question is kind of taboo, but why are game companies asking for our race when we apply? Is it really necessary for them to know that? I feel insecure when it comes to that part. I think generally it's more about a stat thing. Like, it's customary for every application. I think they need to know that because the company needs to report that as part of their report to the government. It's for statistics, it's for, like, you know, I mean, you have to disclose it. it is illegal for them to discriminate or not pick you because of your ethnicity. However, it's kind of hard to tell when they are or aren't. I'd say it's not them. They're not like, oh, I need to know what ethnicity this person is, you know. But it's like a legal thing. They have to report that that stuff. So they're not trying to like out you or not trying to like, you know, silo you into anything. But yeah, it's a legal thing, I'm pretty sure. I will say being on the other side of the kind of application process, like when I've had to look at applicants and interview them, I have no idea any of those things. Like I don't like that's pretty much just for HR for paperwork purposes. For people who are interviewing you for a job in game companies, like they're not getting any information beyond like your resume. They'll get your resume in an email and then they're just like, cool, yeah, be there at this time, and they know nothing else about you. So if you're worried that it's affecting how people see you when you go into an interview, it's not. They literally don't know who you are. They might sometimes check you out ahead of time, like look at your website or something and it might have your face on it or your LinkedIn. A lot of people don't. They kind of just wing it when they go into an interview. It's mainly for HR, from what I've discovered. I've never been told someone's ethnicity or any of their other stuff. Like, I don't hear about what they checked on the disability like thing. I don't hear about like their education unless they put it on their resume. We pretty much just get your resume if from the perspective of someone who's interviewed people before. It's pretty much just for HR. Bye, Hermit. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I also forgot this character was a dwarf too. I had to remind myself halfway through. I'm like, don't forget, don't forget. I didn't know where his legs were. But I'm pretty sure he's sitting in a chair. okay. This will probably be the last one since I still have so much more about this character that I have to do. But I am feeling alright. Anita's for drawing fabric. I feel like it's the most difficult because of different thicknesses, how poses change their wrinkles. Mostly my tips are just, you kind of just have to look up references for very specific situations. Like, what does it look like when a character is posed this way but dressed in silk, and like, how does that affect things, and learning what certain folds look like when it's based in certain fabrics. Like, that stuff you can only really know about if you've done the research for it, and it kind of just comes from experience, really. So unfortunately that's all I can really say. Like, the fact that you're already thinking about that, I think means that you're on the right track, and that you've already sort of figured out why it's so difficult, and why there's not really an easy, like, tips to do it kind of a thing. Because you know all the stuff that you need in order to draw fabric. It's all of that. Knowing all of that through observation and through looking up references for a while, and then at some point you can kind of guess, you can kind of mimic certain things. You have shorthands is what they call it. You have like easy ways to describe certain types of folds and certain types of fabrics, and you use those in order to describe things on the fly, and then you don't need to use references as much anymore. But until you get to that point, you need to use references quite a bit, and that's just kind of going to come from years and years of observation and knowing what you're looking for. How did you become so proficient in drawing? Depends on what you're talking about, I guess, but I've been drawing for a while. How about painting fabric? I feel like I always rely heavily on lines. I can't translate that into shapes. So the important thing about painting is to know that you're painting planes. You're painting with values. I feel like when people first start getting into painting, they are still too reliant on their line work, when you have to completely obliterate your line work. You have to think about it in terms of, these are very specifically planes of the surface. I'm looking at this from the perspective of, I'm crafting form and shape out of values, out of colors, out of values, out of shades of something. And you have to completely get rid of the thought in your head that you have to align yourself with lines. Lines have no place in painting. Okay, they can, but it's like, in order to unwork what you're currently trying to figure out, you have to completely get rid of the idea that lines exist in the 3D space. They don't. Lines are 2D things, but you're trying to communicate 3D form when you paint, right? And so what you might have to do is to do some studies where you only solely paint the forms and really focus on that kind of basic understanding of like highlight, mid-tone, core shadow, reflective light, I think, cast shadows, form shadows, knowing where to put your highlights so that it really focuses on your like main focal point, versus like when to predominantly use mid-tones and form shadows and core shadows as your value palette for everything else. That kind of fundamental of painting is something that's difficult to get to if you are coming from a very line art draftsman based kind of perspective, but it is, I think for me, something I have to remind myself a lot, because I frequently think predominantly in lines, and with painting I have to get rid of that side of myself. So you might just kind of have to try not sketching. Try to define a study only through value, right? Only through the forms that you paint. And it'll really reset your brain. But it's really important because you have to look at form in a different way and shapes in a different way than shapes that you make because you drew the line in a certain angle and whatnot. A little bit of both. I sort of have an image in my head, but I also tend to make certain things up in the fly, or on the fly. Like when I'm starting a drawing, I'll figure out like, maybe it'd be nice to have this person sitting down, or maybe it'd be nice for this person to be like dancing or something. But the actual details of it might not be totally clear to me. I might decide, okay, well, I don't know if they're gonna be picking up their skirt or something, but I'm gonna at least start from a 3/4 view that sort of shows like the side of them, right? I want a twist, but how that twist is gonna get executed, where all of the cloth and everything is gonna lay, I have no idea. I tend to make those smaller decisions on the fly because I try to practice like mixing in happy accidents or lines that I draw into the drawing, as opposed to like figuring out everything beforehand, then cleaning up after. I try to practice sort of similarly to how you would draw like traditionally with pen. If you make a mistake, figure out how to incorporate it. Like, learn how to work around quote unquote mistakes so that it doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like something very functional, very purposeful. And to take a line that you draw and try to adapt it before it becomes something that is difficult to implement and difficult to kind of bring back into the drawing. That is kind of the way that I have chosen to like draw a lot of these things from memory, or not memory, from imagination, because it challenges me to always be thinking about the lines I'm putting down and like the shapes that I'm drawing, because I'm always thinking about ways to bring them back into the piece without having to plan ahead too much. And it's just like a pretty fun way to challenge myself, especially when it comes to like ones that have multiple characters. Figuring out how to pose those two together without sketching ahead of time is intense, but it's a fun challenge in my opinion. Does it feel weird drawing other people's OCs? That part of commissions always felt weird to me. Not weird. I don't enjoy it as much as just drawing my own characters, but I don't really find it weird. Yeah, I think I've always understood that, like, because I've been doing them for so long, that there's like a layer of separation. It's just not as fun to draw other people's characters. And it's not like I even draw my own characters all that much. I just like drawing random characters that kind of serve no purpose except to just be characters. And commissions tend to have very clear rules about, like, oh, they want this character to look like this. Or they have very specific guidelines for what the pose looks like. And, I like making it up myself. Have I stretched and hydrated? I need to stretch, but I will hydrate also. I do not have a mentorship. I do have people who ask me about it, but I currently do not do personal mentorships. I'm thinking about potentially doing it in the future. But I currently don't have the time. So maybe sometime later. Peach! You're behind me! Hold on. Peach break. I'm gonna go kiss my cat. I have offended her enough. She left. She's like, my honor is being soiled. I must leave. Okay, see, now here's the sucky part. Having to redraw my own really bullshit mech design. Or my own interpretation of this mech design. Which I did not... I bullshitted most of it, so... Let's see how this goes. Warhammer mini, isn't he? I don't know. Tojo, you'd be more familiar with their minis than me. Didas, thank you for the raid. Thank you so much. I hope your stream went well. Make sure I didn't miss any tips on improving concentration. It's half like learning how you work, right? I find that it usually takes me a couple hours to really get into the zone about anything, so I kind of have to be drawing and trying to be productive for a few hours before I actually become productive. So I have to plan for that. Learning what distracts you, what doesn't. How do you work best? I always need to have something playing in order to stay concentrated, and it has to be something that I don't want to watch. Because I am very bad at like not looking at something unless I watched it like 50 times. But even then, I'm most productive when I'm listening to just music, typically at night when everyone else is asleep. And I've already drawn for a couple hours already. And then I find myself actually becoming more and more focused. Minimizing distractions might mean like closing a bunch of windows on your computer that like don't help you at all, only having 2 things on. Sometimes like I'll turn off my Wi-Fi access, so I only have like Photoshop, and maybe my phone will be playing Spotify music or something, and I can't look up anything, and that prevents me from like being distracted by stuff. Deleting apps off of things, so like if you're really super addicted to like TikTok or Twitter or anything else, just delete those apps. You can get them back later. Blacklisting sites, some people find that really helpful. I've heard some people find the Pomodoro technique. If you look up Pomodoro timer, there are websites that track it, which is basically you work for like 15-25 minutes, take a break for like 5, work for another 25 minutes, take a break for 5, work for another like 25 minutes, take a break for 15. And that kind of consistent timer of like work, then break, then work, then break sometimes helps people. And then it gets you more in the zone of like, okay, I know I need certain things in order to build my ability to concentrate. And as you get more and more comfortable with like how you work, the easier it will be for you to then make choices and decisions about, okay, I think my concentration really relies on not having or not being around people, or I need sound to concentrate because that helps me really kind of zone out a bunch of like inside thoughts, internal thoughts, and I can just focus on what I'm doing. The more you do that, the more time you can spend in that zone, because the more fine-tuned you'll be able to have, or the more fine-tuning you'll be able to put into figuring out what is comfortable for you. I'm all over the place when it comes to concentrating. I'm not super good at it, but when I do get super concentrated, I can go for like 3-4 hours to like 6 hours super clean. Definitely has taken most of my life though to get to this point in particular. Let me see. Yeah, finding a new location's nice, but that's more so like if you find it hard to concentrate in your specific place. I like finding a new place to work for a little bit. I'm all about like changing up your spot, like whether that be drawing in a new program, whether that be working in a new place. Like, I love going to cafes and working. I'm not super productive while I'm there. Well, actually, that's a lie. I'm actually pretty productive when I do that kind of stuff. But it's like, I'm not at home, so I'm not as comfortable as I would be if I was at home. But it is very nice to be able to, like, get out and do some work elsewhere. And I really wish I could do more of that, working outside of my house. I still have to do the flags. Ah! Bye, Asida. Maybe he shouldn't. I don't know if this mini is meant to be like the version of the mini that they made, or maybe they're just looking at certain parts of the mini, but they actually wanted like a completely different character. Because they wanted a high priest, so maybe the high priest wouldn't have a hammer. So maybe I should not give him a hammer. Cause I think I'm gonna, cause they specifically wanted like petrification on like the hands and stuff, so I might give him fingerless gloves. They did want like the thing that he's sitting on for sure, but I'm not sure. And of an evil bull god? I don't know. It's hard to say. They didn't really give him any, like, specific things about, like, the character, which I imagine... Now that I think about it, probably makes sense that it's not totally this mini that they want me to base it off of. It's more so that this mini just has elements that they wanted. I don't know what that looks like. It'd be cool if I didn't. Stuff like we're like tolling other things. But he did want like some kind of like smoke bowl thing, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. Alright. You guys come up with fantastic creative solutions. I need to look up a bowl because I don't know how to draw cows. Man, I always suck at figuring out like how corns turn in space. I am not good at that. Yeah, exactly. They're sentient. It's okay. It does, and then I don't save. Oh, if you want to send links, I'll probably have to clear it with Tojul first. You'll have to message him the link to see if it's safe. We have it turned off in case of spam bots. I'm sorry. Yeah, damn. Knock on wood, but lately I felt very lucky that we haven't had an experience with that, really. Do you have any time you vividly remember losing your work to something like a power outage or a computer update? I mean, I've always had a laptop up until recently, so power outages never usually affected me. Computer updates, I think it's probably happened before, but nothing memorable. Usually a lot of my lost work comes from just like the program crashing, which happens a lot with Photoshop. And yeah, that's happened before. I generally try to not feel like super crushed by it. I try to like cool off because obviously it does like irritate me, but I try to cool off first, and then I'm just like, okay, we have to problem solve for this. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely happened before. gonna call this done because I think it is. Does anyone have any last minute questions that I can answer before we end it for today? 'Cause otherwise, I'll let you all go. Why am I so God? How everyone else is. You sell your soul to someone, and they give you 20 years of time and effort. Thank you, Rose. Soul sold confirmed. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it doesn't everyone. I couldn't have been the only person. Yeah, thank you, Rice. Well, is this character just for fun? Or are you gonna paint it like your art? No, this is specifically a character commission that I collected for a charity. We did a charity back in the December of 2020, and for everyone who donated, I did a character commission for them. I only work on them during streams, which is why it's taken so long, because we got a lot of people, and I also took a break from streaming because I had work. So this is from all the way back then. And this is oftentimes if you're seeing me drawing a character, especially in this like format where it's just one character on a page, very typically a commission for someone else. So this is someone else's character. Both the characters that I did today are both for other people. Except for, you know, the sketches I did at the beginning were for me, having fun. Pamela, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. But yeah, if no one else has any questions, then I will end it here. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you for hanging out with me and spending your Friday or your Saturday with me. Baby Brain, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. But yeah, hope you guys all have a lovely night. Hope you guys take care of yourselves. I will see, I think next Friday is fine for streaming. But yes, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have a lovely week. Take care of yourselves. I love you all so much. And I will see you all next Friday.